Now, I certainly won't argue in favor of it often, so listen up. I'm going to argue in favor of intuition just this once. You see, most of us are kind of, well, at war with ourselves. And this is due to the fact that we have two hemispheres in our brains which have, well, competing agendas, which may or may not be, to some extent, mutually exclusive. Anyhow, there's, the left brain, right brain. There are two hemispheres, and each controls their respective functions, which are just conceptually entirely different. One is very logic-minded and very deliberate and mathematical, and the other is very impulsive and creative. What am I arguing for here? Well, sometimes I really plan and carefully and deliberately construct the things that I want. This was just meticulously scrutinized before I ever got to actually making it. And then there are other times where I just kind of jump right in and just start making something without thinking about it at all. Like this. It's not... I don't want to say it's poorly planned, but it's not optimized. I'll show it to you when I'm done and what it does. But had I given it enough time and scrutinized it enough, it certainly would have came out differently. This also. This is for seeds. And how... I mean, it seems as though it's just an eclectic sort of mishmash of different things, but I couldn't have developed this if I... Do you hear that bee? It's driving me nuts. Or maybe I'm already nuts. Or maybe you're already nuts. Anyhow, had I given it enough time and deliberate intent, had I given it enough time and planning and sufficient forethought, this would have never turned out this way. It would have been something completely different. Okay, so it's all black walnut. I'm going to give this a route. And this is probably not the strongest way to make this joint. Well, I know it's not. But I'm going to, let's see, this is the cutoff. And I'll clamp that in place and then drill down, put a screw in. Okay, I gotta get that honeybee out of here. He's killed. Go towards the light. As I was saying, I'm going to use this to drill. I'll be able to use that to drill straight down in and then sink a screw into it. And then I'll use a dowel to cap off the hole left in the left from the screw. These will also be dowel joinery. And these little plexiglass partitions are left loose so that they can be adjusted. This is for seeds. It's just for spring planting and convenient storage and movement of them. I've probably mentioned that it's all black walnut, and this is aromatic cedar. Anything else? No. I think I'm going to finish it with some oil and give it a nice route so that it's comfortable, ergonomic, and smooth, pretty. The box joint thing. This is for lenses. And this will be wrapped with fleece. It's for lenses and little mirrors and things that I don't want to have scratched. It's been a problem for a long time. Probably put those little glass mixing dishes. Here, I have one. Like this. Things like that I don't want destroyed. Okay, well, I had no intention of making this any sort of build video. I just rambled for a moment and show you what it is I'm working on today. And how the point that I'm trying to make here is that you can use the two conflicting halves of your brain to produce things that wouldn't otherwise exist. I think there was an old Latin expression, I'll botch it up if I try to remember it, but the gist of it is that art without science is nothing. And that's exactly it. If you are too analytical with the things that you make, you end up with things that are just devoid of any sort of aesthetic value or anything beyond any use beyond utility. And we are creatures that enjoy beauty, so you shouldn't make things that are exclusively rational. But on the other end of the other side to that coin is that things that are just exclusively artistic or just completely made for shock value, that's just self-indulgent, and I have no use for that. Oh, there's one more thing that I would like to mention in this rambling, and that's this. I'm not going to do it. I think I'm going to scrap it. So I would like to, in the interest of preservation of a random idea, I'm going to store it here for safekeeping on the internet. This was going to be a Mobius strip, and it's just thin cutoffs. Maybe I'll show you how you cut thin things in a future video, or I'm sure you can figure it out for yourself. What this was supposed to be these little tiny thin things here were going to go on each side, okay? And then I was going to build it up to the height of a marble so that it was like a marble racetrack. But I was going to do that on both sides of the Mobius. And if you recall what a Mobius is, it's a surface that only has a single plane. So, well, I guess that's not really a plane. That's not a fair definition. It's a surface that only has one edge, though. So if you were an ant, think of... I'm going to pause this just in the interest of keeping the file size short. Hold on. A good explanation of a Mobius strip can be had by looking at that M.C. Escher print, where there's ants on a Mobius strip. And if you imagine being an ant on this track, as you move around, you'll be on the inside on part of your voyage, and then you'll be on the outside on another part. So, the premise for the gizmo I was trying to make, it would be a marble that's locked into a track, and as you roll it around, just by, using gravity to manipulate the marble, as it moves around, sometimes the marble would be on the inside and sometimes it would be on the outside of the track. I just thought it would be a wonderfully pleasant diversion, and maybe I'll do it someday, or maybe you can first. Well, you may want to know, why am I not doing it? Because I think that I've solved all the problems, and I'm sure that I can pull it off. Why am I not doing it? For the same reason that I'm not doing a lot of things. Limitations in time and space. Well, I'm going to get to work, and I will show you these when they're in a more finished state. Well, I'm kind of stuck for now. I have to wait for the glue to set up. But I made some decent progress. Now, I don't really remember what I was talking about earlier, so it's hard to be internally consistent. Something about the duality of man, I think. Which is appropriate considering that in the morning I'm listening to Tool and drinking coffee, and then as the afternoon progresses I'm listening to Fleetwood Mac and considering having some rum. How did it go? Alright. A little bit boring. But I try to keep it fresh by working on multiple things at the same time. This is kind of interesting. This is supposed to fasten here so that I can lift the entire tray out. But I don't like this joint, and it was entirely an afterthought. So I think I'm going to make a cut in it and install kind of like a cherry runner that will give it some additional strength. Now really it's over the top, and it's not even that important because this is going to be covered with fleece, as I think I've mentioned already. And the whole idea behind this was this insert should be able to be removed and thrown away if somebody wants to, and then they can still use these nice little box joint boxes, which are always wonderful. Alright, well, I'm going to pick it back up again. I'll give you a checkup or a update in a little bit. So now, of course, modern neuroscience has revealed that consciousness and behavior are, well, far more complicated than that old picture of the left-right brain dichotomy paints. That's a simplified model, and the two halves of the brain actually share a lot of functions together. But in practice, it still helps to think about this as a metaphor. I know. Get on with it, right? You probably just want to see the reveal for that other thing I made. But we'll get to it. I think what I'm going to do is attach this with spray adhesive by spraying the fleece itself and then wrapping it around and pressing it in. And it will be tedious, I'm sure. But I allowed enough on this cradle, enough space on the cradle so that it will squish down into the box nicely. But anyways, your impatience, assuming that you are impatient on this point, that will just reinforce the point that I'm making, because we should constantly be asking ourselves if we're just responding instinctively on intuition, or if we're acting deliberately towards some rational goal. You know, is this some thing that is strictly for function, or am I acting out on a creative impulse? I guess the trick here is to balance these two things. Maybe being able to see things from very different but extreme positions is the best way to see the way forward clearly. If you were interested by any of that brain stuff I was talking about in this video, I would quickly recommend you to this. It's a wonderful book. You should be familiar with Carl Sagan. I mean, look, Martin Gardner, M.C. Escher, Shakespeare, brain stuff. It opens with discussion about Jacob Bronowski, Plato, Henry David Thoreau. This is some awesome reading. I really suggest that you get to it.